an interesting times today's stories. 80 graves have been vandalized at a French Jewish cemetery. French president reaffirms his support for Georgia's sovereignty.
De fermeté, le processus de frontiérisation qui est à l'œuvre.
Greenpeace Russia is worried over 100 whales captured for aquariums.
Они там мерзнут, им там плохо, у них.
Victims of church sex abuse in Poland fight for justice.
Założyłem fundację, ponieważ sam jestem.
A US-based NGO says there is a disconnect between Pope's words and actions on sex abuse.
He could still strengthen that law.
New York and Boston protest President Trump's national emergency.
The only wall I want is the one between Trump and the Constitution.
Bernie Sanders announces his second run for U.S. president.
That is a grassroots movement, John, to lay the groundwork for transforming the economic and political life of this country.
Plus, basketball stars mentor next generation players at the 4th Junior NBA Day. Hello everyone, I am Sarah Nachman, bringing you stories from around the globe, and this is Eagle News of Washington, D.C. Authorities said Tuesday around 80 graves were dug with swastika at a Jewish cemetery in eastern France, hours ahead of nationwide marches called to denounce a surge in anti-Semitic vandalism and hate speech. A statement from the Regional Security Office said the damage was discovered at a cemetery in the village of Quatzenheim, close to the border with Germany in the Alsace region. Photos show the Nazi symbols in blue paint on the damaged graves, one of which bears the words Elsass-Schwarzen Wolf, or Black Alsatian Wolves, a separatist group with links to neo-Nazis in the 1970s. The top security official for the region, Jean-Luc Marx, condemned in the strongest possible terms this awful anti-Semitic act and sent his complete support to the Jewish community, which has been targeted again. Maurice Dehaene, the regional head of France's main Jewish institution, the Israelite Central Consistory of France, said, quote, "It just doesn't stop. It's shock after shock." In December, nearly 40 graves as well as a monument to Holocaust victims were desecrated at another Jewish cemetery near Strasbourg and Hellersheim, or about half an hour drive from Quatzenheim. French President Emmanuel Macron reaffirms his country's support for Georgia's sovereignty and territorial integrity with its recognized international borders and calls on Russia to adopt a more constructive position on this subject.
J'ai naturellement réitéré à Madame la Présidente l'assurance que la France continuerait à soutenir avec un engagement sans faille la souveraineté et l'intégrité territoriale de la Géorgie dans ses frontières internationalement reconnues. La politique d'engagement au bénéfice des populations de l'Abkhazie et de l'Ossétie du Sud-Est, à cet égard, est un pas important. Et nous serons là pour contribuer au succès de cette initiative et à la résolution du conflit dans son ensemble. La France a constamment rappelé la Russie à ses devoirs et a adopté une attitude plus constructive sur ce sujet.
Salome Zurabishvili, who has been elected Georgia's first female president, is a former French diplomat who exchanged a secure career for the turbulent politics of her ancestral country. Zurabishvili was born in France to a Georgian family who fled to Paris in 1921 to escape the Bolshevik regime. Her family kept up strong ties with Georgian life and culture. Her great-great-grandfather on her mother's side, Niko Nikoladze, was a prominent liberal writer and member of a liberation movement calling for Georgia's independence from the Russian Empire. She studied international relations at the prestigious Paris Institute of Political Studies before launching a 30-year career as a diplomat, with posting to the United Nations and Washington as well as Chad. In an interview with AFP last month, she said, "Decades ago, as a young French diplomat, I couldn't have imagined I would be running for the presidency of my ancestral homeland." Her diplomatic career came to an end after her posting as France's ambassador to Tbilisi in 2003, then led by President Eduard Shevardnadze. Following the bloodless Rose Revolution, the new president Mikhail Saakashvili appointed her foreign minister after approving the move with then French leader Jacques Chirac. Saakashvili said at the time, quote, "She made a brilliant career in France, but she stayed a Georgian at heart and a true patriot."
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Dozens of orcas and beluga whales captured last summer for use in aquariums have brought Russia's murky trade to the spotlight. Russia is the only country where killer whales and beluga whales can be caught in the ocean for educational purposes. The legal loophole has been used to export the animals abroad, especially to satisfy a demand in China's growing network of ocean theme parks. Greenpeace has proposed to the Russian authorities to let the NGO provide technical assistance to the animals so they can survive until their release.
Вот, они там мерзнут, им там плохо, у них кожные нарушения, у многих касаток обнаружены, связанные с термотравмами и контактом со льдом. А сейчас большая разница дневных и ночных температур, и все проверки, которые туда приезжают, они приезжают днем, когда тепло, вот как сейчас, солнечно, а в ночное время там реально холодно, до минус 15, и животные, конечно, очень страдают. Мы предложили ведомствам и губернатору Приморья нашу техническую помощь. Мы готовы поставить термопушки и другие обогревательные устройства для того, чтобы касатки смогли здоровыми дожить до того времени, когда их можно будет выпускать. Сейчас, собственно, в Китае экономический бум. Там строительство океанариев, десятками строятся океанариумы, многие из них хотят заполучить касаток. Касатка — это как вишенка на торте, это прям вот украшение всего шоу. Вот, поэтому, конечно, спрос есть. До тех пор, пока будет спрос, будут нечистоплотные дельцы, которые будут пытаться их вывозить. Вот, да, начинается. Вот недавно прошла новость о том, что в Китае открыт виртуальный океанариум, когда люди могут все это видеть, одев очки виртуальной реальности, гораздо даже более интересно, и при этом животные не страдают. Наверное, будущее за этим.
After years of struggling alone or finding support in national groups, survivors of sex abuse by priests have formed a new international alliance to pressure the Catholic Church to face up to its crimes. The group, called Ending Clerical Abuse, or ECA, brings together activists from dozens of countries on several continents and have been mobilized in Rome as Pope Francis hosts a hotly awaited summit on tackling the wave of child sex abuse scandals shaking the Catholic Church.
Założyłem fundację, ponieważ sam jestem ofiarą księdza pedofila, mając 13 lat. Byłem molestowany i przez wiele lat to ukrywałem. Sam w sobie bałem się, miałem duże poczucie winy. Właśnie jak spotkałem drugie osoby skrzywdzone, przyszła mi myśl właśnie założenia fundacji. No i tak też się stało. No. W Kościele widać jakieś ruchy pozorne, ale tak naprawdę brak dobrej woli. Miała powstać Biała Księga, która nie powstała, miał powstać na jesieni raport, którego nikt nie widzi. Teraz czekamy, prawdopodobnie ma coś się pokazać w czerwcu, ale tak naprawdę to nie wiemy co. Czyli Kościół tak naprawdę nie robi nic, jeśli robi, to są to tylko naprawdę takie bardziej zabiegi PR-owskie. Także skala jest przeogromna, my szacujemy, że to są tysiące ofiar w całym kraju. I mapa właśnie pokazuje nam to, w jakich miastach, czy księża byli skazani, czy to są zgłoszenia ofiar, czy też z artykułów prasowych dowiedzieliśmy się o sprawcach. Polska jest takim samym krajem, jeśli chodzi o wiernych, czy o Kościół, jak Irlandia, Chile, czy też wiele innych krajów, tylko tam już społeczeństwo przeszło ten kryzys, czyli zmierzyło się ze złem w Kościele i coraz bardziej staje po stronie ofiar. I w Polsce jest podobnie właśnie, to co wspomniałem, nadchodzą takie zmiany, że społeczeństwo już daje nam wiarę.
The group's objectives include forcing the church to take a zero-tolerance approach to pedophilia, working to overturn the statute of limitation on abuse cases, and supporting victims in areas where speaking out remains difficult, such as various African and Asian countries. Up next, a U.S.-based NGO says there is a disconnect between Pope's words and actions on sex abuse. New York and Boston protest President Trump's national emergency. Bernie Sanders announces his second run for U.S. president. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return in a moment. Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. A U.S.-based group that compiles data on sexual abuse by Catholic clerics and bishops accused of covering it up fears that a bid by Pope Francis to tackle the scandals is a case of too little, too late. Speaking ahead of a Vatican summit of bishops this week to discuss the crisis, Ann Barrett Doyle, co-director of BishopAccountability.org, complained of a, quote, disconnect between the pontiff's strong statements and his actions.
Canon law has to be changed, not tweaked, not modified, but fundamentally changed so that it stops prioritizing the priesthood of ordained men over the lives of children and vulnerable adults who are sexually assaulted by them. He has not enacted a systemic change unless you count the motu proprio. What he could, you know, that doesn't seem to have a lot of teeth or a lot of muscle, I guess is the better analogy. He could still strengthen that law and start removing bishops and start laicizing bishops who are enablers.
The non-governmental organization is taking part in a counter-summit of victims running alongside the Vatican event.
In our own Archdiocese of Boston, Massachusetts, for example, a couple of years ago, I guess it was, that letter was sent to Cardinal O'Malley from an outsider that knew quite a bit of details about McCarrick's abuses. And there's a person at the Boston Archdiocese, I guess, whose one of his responsibilities is to read the mail that comes in. And either he was directed not to, or he made the decision on his own that this letter that had really troubling information about Cardinal McCarrick did not need to be passed on to Cardinal O'Malley.
Hundreds of people gathered in Union Square, New York, and in Boston, Massachusetts, to protest against President Donald Trump's decision to declare a national emergency to fund a wall on the southern border with Mexico, as 16 U.S. states have also sued the administration over the decision. 16 U.S. states sued Trump's administration Monday over his decision to declare a national emergency to fund a wall on the southern border with Mexico, saying the move violated the Constitution. The lawsuit filed in a federal court in California said the president's order was contrary to the presentment clause that outlines legislative procedures and the appropriations clause, which defines Congress as the final arbiter of public funds. The move had been previously announced by Javier Becerra, the Attorney General of California, who said his state and others had legal standing because they risk losing monies intended for military projects, disaster assistance, and other purposes. Several Republican senators have decried the emergency declaration, saying it establishes a dangerous precedent and amounts to executive overreach. California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, and Virginia are party to the complaint seeking an injunction. The complaint said, quote, use of those additional federal funds for the construction of a border wall is contrary to Congress' intent in violation of the U.S. Constitution, including the Presentment Clause and Appropriations Clause. It added that Trump had veered the country toward a constitutional crisis of its own making. The document read, Congress has repeatedly rebuffed the president's insistence to fund a border wall, recently resulting in a record 35-day partial government shutdown over the border wall dispute. After the government reopened, Congress approved and the president signed into law a $1.375 billion appropriation for fencing along the southern border. But Congress made clear that funding could not be used to build President Trump's proposed border wall. The complaint added that the Department of Homeland Security had violated the National Environmental Policy Act by failing to evaluate the environmental impact of the wall in California and in New Mexico. Friday's declaration enables the president to divert funds from the Pentagon's military construction budget and other sources.
The only wall I want is the one between Trump and the Constitution.
In icy cold facilities.
Yes.
We will not be silent. Say it with us. We will not be silent.
Senator Bernie Sanders on Tuesday launched his second bid for the White House, taking direct aim at Donald Trump in an announcement that caused the U.S. president a, quote, pathological liar. 77-year-old Sanders joined an already crowded field of candidates seeking to win the Democratic nomination and take on President Donald Trump in 2020. He made the announcement in a radio interview with a station from his home state of Vermont.
I am going to run for president. That's correct. We're going to win. We are going to also launch what I think is unprecedented in modern American history, and that is a grassroots movement, John, to lay the groundwork for transforming the economic and political life of this country. That's what's different.
The self-described Democratic Socialist gave an outline Tuesday of how he will campaign. He said, quote, what I promise to do is, as I go around the country, is to take the values that all of us in Vermont are proud of, a belief in justice, in community, in grassroots politics, in town meetings. That's what I'm going to carry all over this country. In a video announcing his candidacy, Sanders called Trump a pathological liar and a racist. Sanders said, we are living in a pivotal and dangerous moment in American history. We are running against a president who is a pathological liar, a fraud, a racist, a sexist, a xenophobe, and someone who is undermining American democracy as he leads us in an authoritarian direction. He said, now more than ever, we need leadership that brings us together, not divides us up. He also highlighted policies he will advocate on the campaign trail: healthcare for all, raising the minimum wage to a living wage, and combating climate change. Sanders, an independent who caucuses with Democrats, made an unsuccessful bid for the presidency in 2016, losing out to Hillary Clinton, who in turn was defeated by Donald Trump. Like Trump, Sanders was an outsider when the 2016 presidential primaries began, but he came close to pulling off an upset over Clinton. He garnered passionate support among young liberals with his calls for universal health care, a $15 minimum wage, and free public university education. In the video, Sanders said the policies that he advocated during the 2016 campaign have made their way into the political mainstream, and that it is now time to complete that revolution. He said, quote, all of these policies and more are now supported by a majority of Americans. Together, you and I and our 2016 campaign began the political revolution. Now it is time to complete that revolution and implement the vision that we fought for. Sanders served in the House until 2006 when he was elected to the U.S. Senate. He was re-elected in 2012 and 2018. Basketball stars mentor next generation players at the 4th Junior NBA Day. That's next. Eagle News Washington, D.C. will return shortly. This is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. I am Sarah Nachman. Today's basketball stars mentor and inspire next generation players at the 4th Junior NBA Day. Eagle News Sports correspondent Norma Castro with a story.
1,500 boys and girls from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, Wilmington Boys and Girls Club, and Bridge 2 Sport gather for the 4th annual Junior NBA Day. Current and past NBA All-Stars will lead these kids in basketball clinics, which lead to stronger fundamentals in basketball, as well as core values of the game. Let's check out what the Junior NBA Day has in store for these young ladies and gentlemen. The 4th annual Junior NBA Day featured NBA stars Stephen and Seth Curry, Blake Griffin, and Kemba Walker. They taught the local youth passing, dribbling, shooting, and movement skills during the event. The players also served as mentors to the participants at each station to build their confidence and self-esteem.
What's it like to give back to the community here in your hometown, doing this Junior NBA Day?
Oh, it's special. Like, you know, it's always some of my favorite time in the summer to have camps and teach kids the game and have fun. So it's another form of that. Coming out, getting out of the community of Charlotte, seeing these kids enjoying their way here, and try to put a smile on their face, and we're all having fun.
Out of all the 3 fundamentals, what would you recommend these kids learn first?
I would say it's the hard work first. That's the big thing. You can learn anything by continuing to work at it and having that determination. So as long as out there having fun and love the games and continuing to practice and get better.
What would you say to the next Seth and Steph Curry that might be here?
Do what you love. I think we love to play the game, so whenever we're practicing or working on it, that feels like a job.
Fun was had for everyone at this event, and each year will bring more and more fun to the kids in the local areas that the Junior NBA event is involved in. Reporting from Charlotte, North Carolina, I am Norman Castro, 1 with 25.
Thanks, Norma. That is today's Eagle News Washington, D.C. Join us again tomorrow as we bring stories that matter to you. Visit our website at eaglenews.ph and eaglenewsalive.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/EagleNewsPH. On behalf of Eagle News Washington, D.C., thank you for watching. I am Sarah Nachman, and I am 1 with 25.